Deputy Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, fantastic to be here. Exciting to be able to talk about technology and the impact on cities in the future. Some might know more about Ericsson than others. Ericsson has been around since 1876. Our founder was Lars Magnus Ericsson. He had a vision of the company already 136 years ago that communication is a basic human need. And I think that when I stand here 137 years later, it's so obvious how important technology will become and communication. And the innovation that has happened the last 137 years are just amazing. Ericsson has business today in 180 countries all around the world, where we see the impact of the technology, the ICT technology. But let me start some 120 years ago. See if the technology works for me. Doesn't seem yet. We'll do it like that then. All right. Try it again. Somebody can change my slide then. I still go back 120 years, and here in Moscow, we did a lot of wiring, putting out wires all around the fixed networks. Yeah, here you see it. This is Moscow in the turn of the century, starting by changing the networks. And that was actually when telecommunications started, 120 years ago. Ericsson has been in Russia for 131 years. So this was actually 11 years into our tenure. We're starting to have people installing wireline in Russia. So where are we right now in this industry? 120 years later.
120 лет назад, примерно 100 лет потребовалось для того, чтобы установить эти проводные линии. 25 лет потребовалось для того, чтобы получить уже 5 миллиардов подписчиков. То есть...
Not only that, today roughly 1 billion people have mobile broadband, and roughly 600 to 700 million people have fixed broadband, adding up to roughly 2 billion people on this earth having access to internet. A dramatic change for each and of us in this room from that technology. In the third quarter this year, ending in September, the total additions of subscribers in the world in that quarter was 140 million new people on this earth having a mobile phone. Just a tremendous change. Today, 85% of the Earth population has mobile coverage. 85%. And that's in 25 years. And now you ask yourself, will there be any more evolution? Will it happen anything more? The only promise I have for you in this room, the pace of change we have seen so far is the slowest we have seen. It's only going to increase from here. If we look out to 2017, we're going to have 9 billion people having 9 billion mobile subscriptions, and for everyone that can count in this room, which I guess all of you can, that's more mobile subscriptions than people. Yes, that's right. We're going to have more subscription than people, not counting any machine to machine. By 2017, 92% of the Earth population will have mobile coverage. But the most important piece on this slide and the prediction for 2017 is that 5 billion people will have mobile broadband. If you now have been counting, you now realize 5 years from now, we're going to have 3 times as many people on this earth having access to internet. 3 times as many. The majority of them will start with a mobile device. They will not go through the progression of a black and white TV to a computer, to a feature phone, and then to a smartphone. They will start at the end with a device that is internet enabled. And the innovation we're going to see is going to be tremendous. So that's what we're going to see in 2017. And roughly some 3 billion smartphones will be around the world. Today, we just passed 1 billion smartphone users in the world. 15% of the population subscriptions have a smartphone. So you can say, wow, 15% already, or 1 billion already. Or you can say, 85% still that's going to get a smartphone and change their lives. That's the tremendous change we have in this industry as we speak. So what will happen? The three forces that will come together is the mobility, the broadband, and the cloud. Those three forces will transform us as users, it will transform businesses, and it will transform the society. Let's just start with how it will transform us. How many have a smartphone in this room? Good, the panel seems to be keeping up with technology as well. That means that you're already transformed. 4 years ago, there were no smartphone in the world. The phone that you used was called a feature phone. 90% of all the time you spent on the phone was actually making a call to a friend or a business colleague or whatever. 10% was sending SMS or trying to get up to the internet. If you have a smartphone today, 76% of the time you spend on the phone, you're not calling anyone. You are checking your mail, you are checking internet, getting real-time information. You are transformed. You have already started using the device in a totally different way than it was planned from the beginning. All the networks that started 120 years ago, they were planned for only one single service, voice. The only thing I know for sure, that's going to be one service out of many when we go forward. If you think about businesses, they are already starting to getting transformed by using the mobility, the broadband, and the cloud. Just think about the music industry. You distribute music digitally. You can suddenly actually, the one that is selling you music, knowing what you're listening to, they can start recommending music to you. They can even change the model. You're not buying music anymore. You're subscribing to music. That change in the music industry is enabled by mobility, broadband, and the cloud. You can take any other industry, from logistics to healthcare to banking, that will use these three forces. And as I said, we are in the inflection point going into the next phase of what we call the fifth technology revolution. And we call it at Ericsson the networked society. We're just going into that. And finally, society. I'm sure that many of the speakers coming after me will talk about the society. Healthcare, education will use the mobility, broadband, and the cloud to transform, rethink that whole industry by using these three elements. That's why it's vital that those networks working can cater for all and come up with new types of technologies. And of course, we have new technologies all the time. A company like Ericsson, we spend $5 billion a year in research and development to see that the networks can cater for all these changes. Let me then come to cities, because why is cities important in this? Cities is, of course, where all the technology innovation starts and where the biggest challenges are today. You probably know every hour 7,500 people are moving into a city. That means that every month we're creating a new Detroit. By 2017, 60% of all data consumed in the world will be consumed by 30% of the population, and they are in urban areas. There is going to be challenges to have sustainable cities. That's for sure. And of course, that needs to be much smarter, the cities. I envision cities in the future having traffic management, using the wireless networks in order to avoid both CO2 emissions, traffic stocking, etc. I envision smart grids. The power management will be done by using the technology and seeing when is the best time to use the power consumption in my neighborhood, for my dry washer, etc. I envision, of course, a social collaboration and a business environment where ICT will play a vital role in order to have a sustainable life in cities. We have done the city index the last couple of years where we measure the biggest cities in the world when it comes to how much infrastructure they have from mobility, broadband and cloud, and how they use it in those cities. Last year when we did it, for a coincidence, the #1 cities was New York and Stockholm, both because the innovation were high there and the penetration was high. Moscow was on the 11th place, where the infrastructure on broadband is coming pretty quickly, but still the innovation and the discussion between academia and businesses using these to enable more business is still yet to come. A very important other discovery I have done is that for every 1% broadband penetration, you start up 3.8% more new businesses in that city. So it's a clear correlation to have a good infrastructure of ICT in the city and creating new businesses. And I think that's very important, and I see it more and more on cities and country levels in the world to understand the importance of having those type of technologies in their cities and in the countries to prosper and move forward. Let me take two examples of what we see in the world on cities. This is Stockholm. I'm coming from Sweden, so I took a case from Sweden. In Stockholm, we have the Royal Seaport. The Royal Seaport is an area which is a smart city. 10,000 of people are just about now moving into the Royal Seaport in Stockholm. That area will be totally enabled with ICT, with a target of reducing the CO2 emission to 1/3 compared to the normal city by 2020, and having by 2030 don't using any fossil fuels at all. This will be enabled by the technologies that are in that city. Everything from smart grids, power grids, everything from electrical cars, and all of that new things that you can see. And that we're actually building right now. So I think this is happening where you use the technology to transform totally the cities in the future. Another example would be what we are doing here in Skolkovo, where Ericsson is part of the Skolkovo project, where we have now been for quite a while been innovating around machine-to-machine. Ericsson has a vision by 2020, 50 billion connected devices in the world. 50 billion connected devices. So that's going to be a very important piece in that work in Skolkovo to innovate and research on it. And we have just come out with the first research project where we can prove that LTE, that is coming to Russia right now, can work with the control of the power distribution in Russia in order to make it more efficient. Even more so, today we announced together with Megaphone that we will enable the machine-to-machine platform with Megaphone to enable connectivity for machines in order to create more efficiency in Russia. So it's actually happening a lot of innovation. So let me sum up with my last slide here. If I then look out in the future, 2030, what will happen? I think that the cities in the future, many will not have a car. You will subscribe to cars and the management of the traffic. You probably, all the education will be digital, meaning that anyone can actually go to a university or a school, doesn't really need to be physically. Half of the basic healthcare can be delivered remotely in order to cut the lead times in healthcare and take down the cost and actually providing that to more people. I think you can see on the list there are many things that can happen in the future, and of course, if you're going to have electric cars, you can charge the car wherever you want to be, and actually knowing that you are paying for it and not your neighbor when you're putting electricity into it. So all in all, I see a huge transformation, and as I said in the beginning, the speed that we have seen so far in telecommunication and the usage of it is the slowest we have seen so far when we look into the future. It's only going to increase from here. So that's really what I would like to say, how the technology will impact our society and cities. Thank you.